Sony was on a bit of a roll when it came to the PlayStation 4 era because they just kept releasing game after game after game. That was their main focus and prerogative when it came to this generation of gaming, was the games. I think what helped them with the head start in this race was Xbox's fumble with the Xbox One. As much as I love the Xbox One, specifically the One X, I would be lying to say if Microsoft didn't do anything wrong during that generation. They did a lot wrong during that generation, especially at the start with their reveal of their TV box. I mean, games console. But yeah, Sony just kind of got it right at the park. They brought out a console which was a games console. It was not trying to be an entertainment system or your media set-top box, although I would argue a lot of people did and still do use it as a set-top box for their Netflix, Disney Plus, or what have you. But they just kept releasing really good games year after year, year after year, and I feel like 2020 was obviously the swan song for the console, even though they would release cross-generation games afterwards with Horizon Forbidden West, God of War Ragnarok, that sort of thing. Ghost of Tsushima felt like a proper swan song for the console and really pushed it to its absolute limits. And it had a massive impact. I mean, you look at it now and you go, oh, it's a pretty sort of stock standard sort of open world game. And yes and no, I would say. But Ghost of Tsushima really worked with its feudal Japan setting, which at the time wasn't overused like it is, I would say, now with certain games. Like a lot of Souls-like games seem to use it, but the feudal Japan setting is pretty much overused now compared to like 2020 and before. I feel that it wasn't used that much, and this was Sucker Punch's new IP at the time, after being quite quiet after doing infamous Second Son in 2014, I believe it was. Yeah, and it was a success because, for one, it was released during the dark ages of 2020, as I call it, but we shan't get into that. Yeah, this was first revealed in E3 of 2016, I remember, and I remember going like, wow, this game looks really good. Some people speculated that it was going to be like a next-gen title because it looked so good with its reveal. I tend not to take game reveals at face value when they say it's gameplay footage, because half the time they doctor it to look really good. And being working in this industry as long as I have, in terms of like written format and seeing these old trailers from back in the day, yeah, it is doctored. But Ghost of Tsushima, it wasn't really doctored at all when it released. It looked just as good as the 2016 reveal. But after the 2016 reveal, it went very quiet for a few years until end of 2019, I believe. And then we got it in the summer of 2020, and it was fantastic. The setting, the visuals, the characters, it all fell into place to make this wonderful, brutal, and yet calming experience at the same time. And you think those three words wouldn't necessarily gel together, but in terms of this experience, it absolutely applies, because there are those brutal moments, there are those calming moments, there are just moments where you just explore, there are moments where you're in brutal combat, and there are some emotional moments in this game. And I just want to look back on this game like 5 years after it came out, and most people are like, oh, why don't you talk about Ghost of Yotei? I haven't bought and I haven't played Ghost of Yotei yet, but I will talk about that maybe in a future video when I get around to picking that game up, that sort of thing. I replayed it on the PlayStation 5, as you can see behind me on the screen. It boosts it up to 60 frames per second, the PS4 version even. I didn't buy the upgrade, as you can tell in the corner there, because no, don't see the point buying the upgrade of the PS5 version when the PS4 version still looks really good. It runs at 60 frames per second when you play it on the PS5, and yeah, it was just fun to replay this game. I've replayed this game quite a few times, but I replayed it specifically this year for this video, and yeah, let's go over it, shall we? So the story of Ghost of Tsushima kicks off right in the heart of a battle. This is set in the late 13th century in the titular region, where the Mongolian Empire has decided to invade Japan, and it kicks off right in the middle of a battle. Unfortunately, you lose, and your uncle, Lord Shinra, who is the ruler of the island, is kidnapped by the Mongolian hordes, and you play as Jin Sakai, and it's pretty typical sort of samurai movie stuff, although it's not like really a revenge story. It's more about Jin taking back his land by any means necessary. And when I mean by any means necessary, I mean by any means necessary. And the whole sort of theming around this game is about Jin trying to stick to his code of honor as a samurai, but ultimately the enemy, the Mongolians, they're fighting dirty, and he realizes that he can't stick to his old values of the old world of Japan. He has to adapt and evolve with his fighting styles to fight the enemy, because otherwise his old ways of confronting them in the sort of honorable way of like looking them in the eye and fighting them, it just doesn't work anymore, because they don't fight by those rules. Because at the start of the game, in the opening cutscene, Shimura sends out one of his best warriors to face the Khan in battle. He goes like, send me out with your best warrior, and the Khan doesn't give a damn. He pours oil on him and then sets him on fire. There's no honorable combat with them, because that's not how they work. And Jin is struck down at the start of the game, and he's nursed back to health by Yuma, who was a thief, and she basically tells him your honorable ways don't work anymore. And what I like about this, this intertwines with the gameplay of Jin's honor code, because basically you sneak around and stab people in the back, and Jin doesn't want to do that, but he realizes that he has to, and his exploits are travel by word of mouth between the Mongolian soldiers, which gets back to the Khan, and those rumors go back to Shimura, who's been captured by the Khan in Castle Kamada, and he says, my soldiers have been telling me rumors that they found bodies of their comrades with stab wounds in the back from your nephew, and he doesn't believe it, but eventually he has to confront Jin and go like, you can't do that anymore, that's not how we do it. But Jin ultimately is like, well, we can't fight a fair fight with an enemy who doesn't fight fair. And I love that sort of juxtaposition between Jin trying to stick to his honor, but at the same time he realizes his honor code is what's holding him back of winning the fight, of pushing the Mongolian hordes out of Tsushima. So he goes, okay, I'll confront them most of the time, but half the time he does have to resort to dirty tactics like stabbing them in the back, using black powder bombs, I don't know, stuff like throwing sand in their eyes, because they won't fight honorably, so he has to resort to the same tactics, and it's really good. And what also helps is that the performances in this game are so good. Even the English dub, because obviously it's made by an American team. It was obviously they consulted like Japan, like Japanese culture ambassador, that sort of thing. There is a Japanese option, because when this game came out, there was a Japanese dub, but it wasn't lip synced to Japanese language. So they patched that later, where it is now lip synced to Japanese dialogue. But you can play it with the English voice acting, and it's still pretty good. Because usually when they have a game that's set in Japan or whatever, where English, obviously when English is not their first language, the English dub generally just sounds a bit naff, to put it plainly. But this game, the dialogue's really good. Some of them talk with heavy accents. You'd think like they would do like sort of like Japanese caricature stereotypes with that. They don't. They all sound pretty natural. I mean, they have a couple of stereotypes, but that's to be expected here and there. But they sound really good. Jin's voice actor is so good. The emotion from all the characters and all the cutscenes is absolutely fantastic. What helps as well is the detail in the cutscenes. Like the facial animation in this game is just superb. I mean, I can't really explain it how good it is. I'll probably show you and be rolled right now. But the facial animation is so good. You see sweat pouring down the side of their head after battle when they've done something horrible. There's no dialogue to express what they've done. You can see it in their faces. One of the main characters, who I won't say who it was if you haven't played this game, he defects to the Mongolians, and there's quite a harrowing scene where he's forced to kill his own kinsman, and there's no dialogue on what he's done. You can see it in his eyes, and he's like puffing with his cheeks because he's basically trying not to throw up with what he's done. And you really see it, and it's really powerful stuff. Like the story, and doubly so is the musical score, which is just the soundtrack in this game is so good. I remember people were like a bit miffed during the reveal, like, oh, they're just playing like the soundtrack. It's like, yeah, because it's so good. They had like a live performance of it because it's that good. And I think it's safe to say most Sony games, in terms of like the first party, their soundtracks are always so good, like Uncharted, The Last of Us, Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War. They've all got superb soundtracks and composers, and Tsushima is no different, and it's just so good. It's thematic to the environment, because obviously it's got like Japanese instruments, and it's just, and you get the really percussive tracks when you're in battle. You get the that sort of thing, and it's heart pounding when you're in the heart of battle and you hear that in the background. It's just so good. But I've harped on enough about the presentation, the story and the voice acting, that sort of thing. Let's get into the gameplay part of this game. The gameplay element of Ghost of Tsushima is really good. Really, like at first you'd think it's pretty stock standard open world affair, like Ubisoft, Assassin's Creed, that sort of thing. And yeah, it's pretty hack and slashy. It's not particularly challenging. The combat seems a bit shallow at first, because obviously the game slowly introduces you to your standard sort of set of moves. Like the way I like it introduces your combat is through flashbacks of Lord Shimura when you're a child, and he teaches you the basics, like the light attacks, heavy attacks, like breaking enemies sort of defense, where you have to do heavy attacks. And what you slowly learn is, as the enemies become more abundant with different styles, your standard stance that you get at the start of the game isn't going to cut it for the rest of the game. And how you unlock more stances is through killing Mongolian leaders. And these Mongolian leaders can appear in strongholds you find in the world. They can appear in main missions sometimes. Sometimes they'll be like bosses at the end of a mission, that sort of thing. But when you kill a certain amount of Mongolian leaders, you unlock a new stance. And these stances can deal with spear bearers, shield bearers, double sword bearers, heavy guys who carry massive axes. And you can break their defenses like that. But if you try to do it with a different stance, their defense will hold up for longer. But if you use the specific stance with, like, I don't know, the moon stance, it will break like the spear bearer's defense, that sort of thing. And what I like about that, it makes the combat more fluid. And you think like changing between stances in the middle of a fight would be quite cumbersome, but fortunately it's quite fluid, it's quite quick. All you have to do is hold the R2 button, and it will bring up a radial menu on the bottom right of your screen, and you just hit X, square, circle, etc. to choose the specific style you want to deal with the situation. And not only that, you get your standard skill tree of stuff, like you get like things to improve your stances, you get things to improve your general like combat techniques, your defense techniques, and of course your titular ghost techniques, as you are the Ghost of Tsushima. So that this involves more stealth stuff. So like you get like black powder bombs, a lot of bombs actually. Kunais you get, which you can throw at enemies, and it'll break their defense instantly. And just general sort of like stealthy stuff to help you sneak around. And what I like about the stealth in this game, it's also introduced contextually within the story, in the narrative. And when you first stab an enemy in the back, you get a flashback with Lord Shimura when Jin is a child, and he teaches him about, you must face your enemy onwards, look them in the eye when you're going to kill them, that sort of thing. And it adds an emotional depth to the gameplay, because what Jin is doing, he knows it's wrong, but also at the same time, it's the only way he can get his home back from the Mongolians. And I really like that element when you do kill people in a stealthy manner, because it shows Jin's sort of like distraught face, because he can't believe what he's doing, because he's basically throwing everything that his uncle taught him out the window. And it can be quite emotional. There's like some of the flashbacks when you see him as a child, because there's that sort of emotional bond with him and his uncle, because his uncle was his father figure, because his actual father was killed. And it feels like he's breaking that bond with his uncle because of his stealthy, dishonorable ways of dealing with the enemy. But getting off the story topic, the stealth elements, they're not particularly in depth. They're pretty sort of stock standard. If you've played like a Far Cry game or an Assassin's Creed game, it's pretty familiar. You've got like your long grass that hides you from the enemy, and when they see you, there's like a reticle on screen which will fill up with a white bar first, and then when they get very suspicious, it'll be yellow, and when they spotted you, it will turn red. If you played those sort of games, you kind of know what you're in for. And yeah, it works. It's not particularly in depth, but it's fun because especially with the sound effects when you stab people, very crunchy, quite sickening with some of the sounds, but it's visceral. It's over the top. Um, Speaking of visceral and over the top, the combat in general is just so visceral, bloody, gory, crunchy, for a lack of better words. They're very, very crunchy, this combat. When you're slicing through enemies, you hear flesh being separated, you hear bones crunching, you hear the screams of your enemies as they're holding on to the stump of where their arm used to be. It's quite good stuff because the voice acting again with the combat is top notch because like it sounds like people are being eviscerated and it's quite sickening in parts. You go and you almost go, oh, was that me? When you're just going hiya and suddenly you hear the and it's quite harrowing to hear them just scream and writhe around in pain as you've like sliced their arm off or their leg off, that sort of thing. But it's effective. It has impact, which a lot of games lack impact when it comes to sort of melee combat, because a lot of the time it can just feel like a bit of a wet fart when it becomes of impact of melee combat. A game that comes to mind with like melee combat is Mafia: The Definitive Edition. It's just like feels like you're slapping someone with a wet fish. But this game doesn't have a problem with that. You can tell that not Insomniac, Sucker Punch, sorry, took their time and effort to really invest into the melee combat because it's well choreographed. You feel the connections of the swords when they're defending themselves, especially in the one-on-one duels, which serve as like the boss fights. You'll fight key characters in one-on-one fights. These aren't as like, you can't just bluff your way through these fights either. These one-on-one fights, you have to be quite careful, slow down a bit too, because you're not fighting more than one enemy. It's just one-on-one, you and the other person, and you have to take into consideration what their attacks are. You have to analyze them. Should you dodge them? Should you parry them? Think about when you have to go in for an offensive attack too. And it's not a tactical game in terms of combat. You're not like dodge rolling like it is in Dark Souls. You can kind of like bluff your way through certain fights, but the one-on-one fights, I find you have to be a bit more careful because they tend to be the more experienced fighters when you fight them, and they're great for story purposes too. And another aspect of this game is the presentation, and I shall get into it now. Finally, the presentation of the game, and what can I say? It's still a stunning game. It only came out 5 years ago on the PS4, and yeah, this is the version I played. I played the PlayStation 4 version on the PS5. No PS5 upgrade. I didn't get the director's cut or anything like that. It runs the PlayStation 4 Pro code, so it will run at higher frame rate and resolution, and yeah, it really looks good still. What I like about the presentation is the colors. The colors of the landscapes are superb. They really pop on a 4K television with the HDR, with the higher frame rate, obviously the 4K resolution, that sort of thing. It just really, really pops. And what really helps the overall landscape and presentation is the calming and the soothing moments, because it's not all about like non-stop combat in this game. And it's not just like calming and soothing moments with like just exploring on your horse or on foot, that sort of thing. It's also those moments the game introduces, like when you discover parts where you have to write a haiku yourself. It's that sort of reprieve that a lot of games don't quite get right, but this game gets it right with the context of it being in Japan at that period. So you have meditation points, even in the story moments with one of the story beats I remember with Lady Masako. You play the flute with her as you're both meditating, looking beyond the horizon, and it's a really beautiful moment. It really showcases that the samurai weren't always just about fighting all the time. They were all about peace and just like having those calming moments between battles or before the storm of a battle, that sort of thing. And Ghost of Tsushima gets those moments right beautifully and also the lack of HUD is the one that got me the most, because I've played a lot of games, like open world games. Usually they'll have like lots of HUD lit all over the screen, cough cough, looking at you, Ubisoft. But the lack of HUD in the game is something that really captivated me, and it allows you to really appreciate the landscapes when you're looking over a cliff or a horizon. Whereas if you're playing a Ubisoft game, you've usually got like text there, map there, ammunition or resources there, and it gets a bit cluttered and you can't see what's in front of you. Whereas in this game, it has a sort of like contextual waypoint, as it were, in the form of the wind. So if you need to get to an objective, there aren't any markers on your screen. There's no mini map on your screen either. All you have to do is swipe the, well, I can show that, swipe the touchpad there on the controller of my t-shirt, and it will blow the wind in the direction where you have to go. And I wish more games would do that. They would have like a sort of like in-world waypoint, not too dissimilar what Fable 2 and 3 did back in the day with their little sparkles on the floor, and you could change like the intensity of that sort of thing. But I'm getting sidetracked here. But more games need to have like sort of in-game sort of waypoints that are sort of contextual with the world, where they're not egregious, not this shining beacon that you go towards, that sort of thing, but sort of like gently pushing you in the right direction. And Ghost of Tsushima has that sort of gentle push, as it were, to help you on your way. And it just lets you appreciate the beauty of the landscapes, the lush grass that you explore and you sneak through, the countless beautiful cherry blossom forests. The forests in general are just so beautiful with the different colored leaves, and just the pure sort of vibrancy of the color scheme in this game with its landscapes is absolutely fantastic. And you don't get it often with a lot of games. I'd say Assassin's Creed Shadows came close, but not as close as Ghost of Tsushima's like portrayal of like the vibrant vegetation you just see in this game, and it's just nuts because it was on PS4 originally, and I remember my old PS4 kind of struggling when I played this back in 2021, I think it was, because I didn't have a PS5 at the time. And in general, as I've talked about, the character models in the story section, they just look so phenomenal. Like, they're so well captured, subtle twitches in cheeks, sweat running down the side of their faces, that sort of thing. I could wax lyrical about the presentation, but we'd be here all day. So yeah, that's the presentation. And yeah, that's it really. My sort of like thoughts, look back at Ghost of Tsushima. It really is just a phenomenal game, and I know a lot of people probably say, oh, it's overrated, that sort of thing. And I know some people have some opinions about the sequel, which I don't yet because I've not played it. I haven't even bought it yet. I'm waiting for it to get a bit cheaper because I'm a bit of a cheapskate, but that's neither here or there. Yeah, Ghost of Tsushima is just a phenomenal game, and it was a great swan song for the PlayStation 4. And its ripple effects are felt on the PS5 because obviously it got re-released on the PS5. Yeah, it's just a wonderful game, just an absolute joy to play, a joy to explore. And if you have a PS4 or a PS5 and you somehow still haven't played this game, I recommend it. It's just a really good open world game. It's not an overwhelming open world game, which is the other thing I forgot to mention. Like at the time, that year, 2020, Assassin's Creed Valhalla came out, and I love that game, by the way, but I understand its criticisms of it being too long, because I'll be honest, it is too long. It's too long, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. But Ghost of Tsushima hits the middle point, the right spot. It's got a decently sized open world, but it's more concise and compact with its details and its quest and mission design. So you're not really bored with it like halfway through or even like a quarter way through. You feel like the mission variety works great. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Ghost of Tsushima. I want to say a big thank you again for tuning in and listening to my ramblings about a game and the hardware, that sort of thing about games. You guys have been great. I enjoy doing this a lot, just like sitting here on the sofa here, just talking about games, gameplay over the top of it. Not the most demanding videos for me to put together, but I enjoy doing them nonetheless, because I could just talk about games for hours upon hours. And some people said, you should start a podcast. Like, well, it has come across my mind years ago, but I've never really sort of done it, to be honest. I completely lost my words, but but again, thank you for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, all the usual mumbo jumbo people say at the end of YouTube videos, and I'll see you next week.